Yes, sir. Welcome into How About Wow. There are two new Cowboys to talk about on tonight's show. Could this seriously make them a playoff contender in 2025? What do you think about the trade? Leave us a comment down below. Like the video if you love Quinnen Williams being a Cowboy. Let's do this, Jimmy.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Yeah, buddy, I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan, and with me, as always, here on How About Wow, Cowboys fans, our favorite football Neanderthal, New Bear Lesniewski.
Hey, you're about to have a new one, man. Q is, you're gonna love him, man.
Yes,
Bama bred dude. I mean, he's a monster, and just you heard him earlier today. I wake up, I want to win.
Yeah, he made a great impression on the media. You know, he kind of reminds me of like a defensive version of Tyler Booker. He's just a giant who loves football. He's got enthusiasm. He exudes leadership. And I think the Cowboys made a step in the right direction here, bringing Quinnen Williams over from the Jets. What do you think? You know, leave a comment down below. We'd love to talk football with you throughout the day. But New Bear, give me a grade. You know, we got a wide range. Ben Solak went F. A lot of A's out there. There's a wide range of reactions to this Quinnen Williams trade. All I know is the football team's a lot better with him.
Period. Whatever you decide to do, you want to talk about the scheme, you want to talk about the players around him, you want to talk about cap flexibility, you want to talk about the machinations of Micah Parsons and what it really ends up netting out to be. There's still so much of that that's TBD. Right now, at the very least, you have reason to have hope. And you have reason to sit there and say things aren't the same anymore. And I've been saying this since the summer, going back to George Pickens. When they made the move for George Pickens, I said this is the first of how many. What's the next thing they do? What's the build off of this? And they've done that. And they clearly have a plan. And you can say what you want, and you can shit on it like some people have. I mean, to give this grade an F is basically criminal engagement farming. To look at a player like Quinnen Williams, to see him be reunited with the coach that he said, I was an ascending player and I felt like I was on my rise. He helped turn me into an all-pro. To look at the breakdown of his stance beyond his stats, literally from the ground up through anything you want to count, that this dude has done and is about to show you that he can still do and continue to do so. Like, I don't understand why the nation isn't more excited.
Yeah, you know, I think some portions of Cowboys Nation are. I think other portions are just so down and out from the fact that this 2025 season is hanging on by a thread. It is a cliffhanger right now that I think, you know, maybe for some people it's hard to get up, or you look at the shortcomings of this team and you're like, well, it's not going to push them over the top. So they got a lot more good things to do before I can really get excited. And, you know, a lot of fans have been around since the 70s, 80s, 90s, and, you know, are going to be wholly unimpressed until you get in the tournament and win multiple playoff games. They are not going to get out of their seat for a damn thing until they see him in the NFC title game. I'm going to give it a B-. You know, I'll give the player himself a solid A. But I think a couple of things. Number one, you gave up an awful lot, and then number two, you went and got Kenny Clark. You know, you have Osa that you spent $23 million a year on. Like, you've done a lot at defensive tackle, and they massively need a dominant edge. They need a dominant corner. They need a dominant safety. They need a dominant middle linebacker. Maybe they feel like they got closer to that with Logan Wilson. You need a real right tackle and maybe a real left tackle. So as we're looking at the shortcomings of this team, hell, if Osa and Kenny Clark can't do enough at defensive tackle, so that's what I'm downgrading it just a little bit on. It's an overpay, and you know, kind of you did do basically Micah for Quinnen Williams in a pick swap. You know, because that's the difference in your draft capital. You've given up two really good draft picks. You've given up two coming back, and you get $20 extra million to spend on cap space. That's why I'm not making it a C.
I mean, you asked for a very simple question, what would the letter grade be? And I went and did what I always do, which is talk about 15 other things related to the point that you want to
It's prove. Cool. I'm used to it. I work with Broadus every day.
I do respect that that's part of it. And I think I said to you coming into this, it was immediately hell yeah. So then extrapolate. And what does that mean? Like you just said, player versus team, scheme fit, money, all the things. I feel like this is a solid B, as much as like 85, 86, like right ramping up into that B plus range, where if what he's truly capable of, and everyone wants to talk about his birthday, right? And this is age 28. He's going to be 29. But he's still in that athletic prime. And especially for a dude like him who should age well. I mean, if Cam Hayward can play as well as he was all pro last year, 36? He's still playing. He might play till he's 40. Like, I think people have to understand that these types of guys can play basically as long as they want to not be the first person at Krispy Kreme, right? Like, as long as he wants to take care of his body, he can be highly productive. Now, does that mean Pro Bowl or does that mean all pro? And all I'm going to say again with the Cam Hayward thing is you don't have to have 12 sack level production like Quinnen Williams has had in this league in 2022 and 3 straight Pro Bowls with one of the worst franchises, not just in the league, but in league history. And, you know, you talk about this all the time. Like, toxicity wears on you. When you know you're part of a rebuild and then that rebuild gets nuked and it's going to be another rebuild, it's not just about, you know, collecting that money. You still got to show up and the eye in the sky doesn't lie, right? Because hopefully you want to get paid the third time. This is a very prideful man. This is a guy, new coaches, new schemes, literally changing his stance and doing whatever is asked. And now I feel like if he plugs into this and you start talking about some of the other things, 3-4-5-2, you start talking about him being able to play bully ball. And, you know, you see a lot of talk about, you know, 1-3-4-I, you know, who's truly going to be the nose. There's so much versatility built into this that if they're all healthy, what this inside does is you're not coming in and going for 143 per on the ground, but you're also creating one-on-ones every down for Easy, Clowney, whoever else is on the outside. And don't forget that Overshown's coming through that door. That Logan Wilson, at the very least, is what Jack Sanborn was supposed to be, which is a guy who knows where everyone's supposed to be. Shout out Bobby Belt saying that about Overshown as well. But Logan Wilson's a little bit better athlete. Overshown, clearly better athlete. Leofow, super disruptive. If all of this stuff is able to come together, Q becomes a focal point, just like TJ Watt in Pittsburgh getting double teamed all the time. You know you have to put 2 on this dude or he is going to wreck you from the inside out.
Yeah, I feel like as soon as Micah walked out the door, every pass rusher you have on this team went down at least 1 letter grade, maybe 2 with Osa, because he's gotten so many more double teams. It's difficult for a lot of these guys to be productive. And the thing with Quinnen Williams, he's the rare defensive lineman that can do both. You know, he's going to absolutely smash the run. He's the #1 rated defensive tackle at that. He's a top 10 defensive tackle when it comes to rushing the passer. So make no mistake, even though I give the trade a B- for other reasons, very excited about the player. And let me say this, I think it could move into an A. And I'll tell you how and why. And we don't know the Cowboys' full-on philosophy today on how they're looking at the big picture. But Jerry talked this week a couple of times about being 83 years old, and he has more of a sense of urgency. If this and George Pickens and Kenny Clark and moving away from Micah is all an attempt to make a massive push all in, and maybe 2025 was a little premature on it because you still have a young offensive line and you just have too many holes to fill. But if you go into 2026 and follow this up with a big spending free agency and you nail the draft, and this is part of an all-in move where they're borrowing more future assets. Like they traded the 2027 first round, not the 2026 first round. That's rare that a team does that at this point in the calendar year. So I'm hoping that this means, New Bear, they're going more harder all in, and overpaying for Quinnen Williams is just the cost of doing business. Like, for example, the Colts, like, we're close. We have Daniel Jones on fire. We don't know how much longer we're going to be like this. Yes, we'll give up a 2 for Sauce Gardner, who's not the best corner in the NFL, but he's going to be our best corner.
2 ones. You said we'll give up a 2. 2 ones.
2 ones for Sauce Gardner. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, talk about perspective. Some of the moves that were made or not made, the trade deadline was awesome. And anybody talking about how it's not Madden, look, did every trade that everyone talked about happen? No, but so did, I mean, how about Sauce Gardner? He wasn't on the block until he was gone.
Yeah. The value just started increasing, and it is an overpay. Like the teams that dealt players, they charged an absolute premium, and that's why a lot of those other trades didn't happen, because the reported value was actually lower than what it would take to get the guy. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with the Cowboys. If you're willing to say, you know what, we don't need the perfect deal to fall in our laps. We have gone Dak's entire career now, just like Tony's entire career, without getting out of the divisional round. Damn it, we're overpaying for Quinnen Williams so we can lock him in. We're going to overpay for some other guys when we get to March of 2026, and we're going to give ourselves the best chance with Dak Prescott coming up on 34 years old to actually make this happen. And if that's what this trade represents the beginning of, or an acceleration of, then yes, it's an A+, and it's a historical day for the Cowboys front office.
Well,
they finally get what it takes to win.
The really exciting thing about this is that anytime you're in a place where you've been complaining and you feel like you haven't been heard, and we're talking about 30 years now, and not just preceding Dak, like everyone just thought it was going to post-date him too whenever, 4 rode off into the sunset. And now we're sitting here saying, what does that mean? Right? Because everyone thought that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to do one thing and they were going to ride through this year with Mason Rudolph. Aaron Rodgers comes walking through that door. Things change. Now Micah Fitzpatrick gets set down in Miami. Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith come back. To your point, you talk about what the Eagles have done and other teams in the window. Purgatory is the worst place to be. You could argue that Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh Steelers, 18 straight non-losing seasons, right? Part of that is
the wheel to nowhere.
Part of that's being a loser because you have no actual chance at winning. And when you have an opportunity to hit the gas and you do, that signals going even faster going forward. And there might be a bottom of that hill and it might be a really hard crash, but it's pretty damn exciting to be on the on-ramp to somewhere and know that, hey, we've done some things. It's put us in a position to do more. And when you look at this team as it's currently constructed, what do you not like about it? Or what do you even hate about it? Or what are you...
Corner and tackle.
Okay, so look at every other team and tell me they don't have at least 2 flaws. You think Justin Herbert feels good right now about where he's at and where they're going to go? Because those dudes who they've lost, they might not be right next year because of the injuries they've suffered. And just a few weeks ago, we were talking about how deep and how loaded the Superchargers were. Herbert looks like an absolute rock star, and he's got the 2 best tackles arguably in the whole league. Now he might not even have them next year. And oh, by the way, their superstar rookie running back out. The guy that they brought in to be the insurance policy, who had never missed a game in his career, literally blew off his face on the 4th of July and then blew out his Achilles the first time he took a hop step in the pocket. Herbert had to hit the triangle button just to get over him. Like, you never know.
No,
so
you don't.
Taking these chances, and even if it is an overpay, everything's a risk. Paying Micah would have been a risk, would have limited you or taking other things off the table. Moving him, going all the way back to Pickens, doing everything that you've done to this point signals that there's only more to come. And at the same time, it is now incumbent upon the guys under that roof in that building who take the field together to come out of this bye week with their hair on fire, take care of the Raiders, and put themselves in a position to deliver on the promise of the potential of what's there. Let's not talk about what's not there or what you don't like, because everybody has some of that. Every team, Patty Mahomes included, is mitigating something. You could argue the Chiefs will rue the day they didn't go give up a 3 for Breece Hall if they don't add another trophy to their trophy case. Right now, they're on the outside looking in if the playoffs come calling. So
yeah, that was interesting. I think that's the difference between hopefully the Chiefs that are fed. They have the 3 Super Bowls. They're making the AFC title game every year. That's fine. We don't need Breece Hall. I think desperate, urgent teams say, okay, whatever it takes, bleep it, a 1 and a 2 for Quinnen Williams. And hopefully that's a sign that the Cowboys have become more desperate than the Chiefs and are willing to do whatever it takes to make sure they get the job done. Because what you were just talking about right there, almost every team in the NFL has a gaping hole. The Eagles decided last year, we want another one. We're going to have a year where we don't have a gaping hole. How about that? And every team that came up against them did, and they looked freaking brutal. We'll get to, can the Cowboys go 6-2 down the stretch and maybe even make things interesting this year? Maybe you don't have to wait till 2026. What do you think about that? What do you think we're missing in our Quinnen Williams analysis? There's a solid 14 minutes plus on a Quinnen Williams discussion. We're going to get to Logan Wilson. We're going to get to the second half of this season coming out of the bye and what realistic expectations for the team are now. Before we get to Wilson, buddy, Quincy Williams demoted by the Jets. He might have had like a bad attitude reaction to his brother getting dealt. I know there's a lot of toxicity around that. The Cowboys wanted him, according to our sources. And it was only after not getting him that they went to Logan Wilson. So maybe they thought Quincy Williams could have been a middle linebacker like they believe Logan Wilson is going to be a middle linebacker for him. I don't know. I'm not a defensive coordinator. I couldn't break that down for you. But I find that really interesting that they wanted Quincy. They couldn't get him in a trade for some reason, and then the Jets take him out of their starting lineup. Like, that's unfortunate because it would have been cool to keep Quinnen and Quincy together.
So do I need to say it again, or do we just understand that Woody Johnson, the Johnson & Johnson, the whole thing is one of the worst run franchises in the NFL? To have an expiring contract guy, to have multiple expiring contract guys who are tweeting, "Get me out of here," who are leaking DMs about how happy the players are who got out to be free, to go from 1-7 to 7-2 or whatever the case may be, to not move those guys for capital that could help this war chest of things that they have going forward. Cool. You know what's not in that war chest? The picks you should have gotten for guys that you didn't even flip, but you also are not even going to play. Like if you're going to look at the Quinnen Williams thing and be hopeful, into excited, into, like you said, it could become an A. Like, how does the roof go off this thing? Just think about any job you've ever had and any boss that made you hate coming to that job, and then going to a new place where they say, "Hey man, you're pretty awesome. What do you need to be good? Hey man, here's these other guys who are going to come run with you. Hey man, we want to make this thing like Alabama where you guys won all the damn time. What can you teach us? Where's that hunger coming back around from that turns you into an all-pro? Oh, by the way, here's the coach that you literally tried to fight on the sideline and then hugged it out because y'all are the two most intense dudes on the planet, and neither one of you are going to back down from anybody. So let's go get the best out of yourself and everybody around you." Like, this thing has an upward trajectory of a bunch of stuff coming together where Q is literally in the middle at the focal point of what the other offense has to do to attack you. And then at the same time, how you're able to go into a game. Just last week, what were we talking about? What happens when the offense goes out and knows they don't have to put up 40 to win? What if they know? What if Ferguson understands I can take 11 instead of diving and fumbling to get 3 yards short, so we have to go for it on fourth down because we're already in Aubrey's field goal range. Not that you want to take the same foot we talked about on the gas pedal to go make this trade, but in the game inside the game, now you can take the 3 because you know you don't have to score 40. 28-31 easily gets it done. You get in a rock fight, you got some big ugly dudes who might take the other dudes out of the game.
You do. And, you mentioned the Jets and two of their stars that moved on in this last offseason, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, having better seasons this year than they did last year. I definitely think there's something to it, and I hope they can bring Quincy Williams in for a family reunion next year. I believe his contract is expiring. Now, Logan Wilson, the linebacker that they did get, we really just need him to read, react, be in the right gap, be a solid tackler. Like, that would be a huge upgrade. But I also think he's better in coverage, and his awareness in zone drops has to be significantly better than what they've had with, Kenneth Murray and Maris Leafau and Shamar James and all these guys. They do something fairly well that you're like, okay, well, that was kind of cool, but none of them do enough of the stuff right. And on my way back to the house tonight, after we signed off in the G-Bag Nation, he had the Cowboys Crosstalk show with Bobby Belt, and his guest tonight was Leighton Vander Esch. And he was talking about how important the communication and getting guys aligned and on the same page pre-snap and sometimes even immediately after the snap is. He said he learned it from Sean Lee. And watching these Cowboys, he said it's a massive problem. And he said you cannot really overstate how much of an impact it can make if you just have one linebacker who's preparing and game planning and is aware on an elite level like that. So that's all to be said. Hopefully Logan Wilson can do all of those things. And if he can, it should have a profound impact on the communication and the quality of getting guys on the same page.
So one of the things that I love about these trades together is that the Cowboys are screaming at you, football character matters, because Quinnen Williams is one of those dudes, and so is Logan Wilson. And here's what I mean by that. Logan Wilson, team captain, everyone knows he got demoted because they wanted to go younger. And you know how classy this dude was on his way out of town? All the people just ripping him for, oh, hey, look, we went and traded for the middle linebacker of the only defense in the league that's worse than ours, and they're showing him missing tackles and everything he's ever done wrong in his career. Dude, I don't care what you want to say and show, PFF grades, memes, everyone has bad tape. You don't make 100 tackles 4 years in the row in the NFL if you can't play. And the list of middle linebackers or strong side linebackers or, just dudes who are going to bow their neck and, oh, by the way, have multiple seasons with 4 picks, have multiple seasons with multiple sacks. Like, cue up the profootballreference.com and go 100 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 4 picks. It's a pretty short list. He's on it.
He's outstanding.
Like,
I think this might have been a money-saving move. Like, the Bengals are so cheap. I think they just went, wow, this guy's making $7 million, and we have a guy on a rookie contract who can play it almost as good. Let's bench him so he wants out.
Well, you want to talk about guys who should have been moved and everything that franchise has gone through with the Trey Hendrickson saga. And, week to week, that team has, you talk about gut punch stuff. And, shout out Brandon Wayman. I know you're going to be watching in Cincinnati. Like, sorry that, Joe Flacco throwing for 470 and 4 wasn't enough against both of our, Bears. My goodness, that defense is a hard watch. He hasn't been at the fulcrum this year. He was last, and you could argue that in a year where Burrow probably should have been MVP, that defense keeps him out of the playoffs, keeps Burrow from having another trophy on his mantle, and they got a lot of blame for a lot of things. The same conversation we just had about Quinnen Williams, 1,000,000% applies to the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of toxicity. Cheapness is the word you just hit on. That is an understatement. It was passed down. It's a generational thing through that family. And now the kids are taking over for the old man and doing it everywhere they can, from the facility through the players. It's ridiculous. But on top of that, think about now, 2 dudes playing in a place where you're going to lose, playing in a place where you're going to get blamed for that loss. And then, oh, by the way, your picture not being clean. Because Quentin Williams can't even get in the stance he wants to. Logan Wilson can't do anything without getting punched in the mouth because the dudes in front of him are just getting blown off the ball. Same conversation we were having before the Kenny Clark trade. How can you talk about Murray, Sanborn, Leafau, whoever's in there, when they literally have the guy in front of them in their face because they're getting dominated? That stops now. And if you're Logan Wilson with a point to prove, to show there's still more meat on that bone, if you're Quinnen Williams to show everybody that you got that all-pro juice still, you put those dudes together, you green dot it, you get a little juice from Overshone. Here comes Revel. We're going to get both safeties back. You're going to get a complete picture for the first time in a few weeks, coming off a bye against a team that should be able to kick their teeth in before you ramp up for a stretch run where everything is on the line.
All righty. It's How About Wow. Like the video if you like the trade, if you're liking the content and haven't subscribed yet. We would love it if you can. All right, let's get to this part of the discussion.
I missed one thing. Logan Wilson, you know what he did? He called the rookies. He called the rookies who replaced him that he got benched for on his way out of Cincinnati. He said, I'm one call away. Anything you need, whenever you need it. He is all class. We're going to be super proud of this dude.
It's a really good point, man. Like the Micah Parsons thing. Tank Lawrence was part of the toxicity as well, but then Trayvon Diggs is out there, and there's been a really slow move to buy into what Matt Eberflus is trying to teach these young Cowboys in year one. And I just think that general attitude of something is owed to me, this organization is stupid, they traded my guy, all of that stuff has to get flushed. And there's been a very marked difference in tone and enthusiasm level from the offensive and defensive players. And now I think with Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, Logan Wilson, Malik Hooker's a good leader, but he's been hurt. I don't want to leave anybody out. I think Ezraku is another one of these guys that has enthusiasm and professionalism. They're starting to put it together. Okay, so if you look at where they are and what is left of the season up next year on How About Wow, they got to go 6-2, my man. They're 3-5-1. I think 9-6-1, or what would that be? 9-7-1 might get you in. Might. You might need to go 7-1 on this stretch, but let's just assume it's 6-2. Now, we've mentioned Bobby Belt's name a couple of times today. He joined us in the G-Bag Nation first day at our new studio. He happened to be there, so he jumped on with us. And apparently, he's been throwing out there on the morning show. He thinks at worst they're going 6-2.
Yeah,
I was trying to put together like a on thin ice type of yikes, don't beat me up too bad. I think they could go 6-2. I think Clowney's coming into his own. As Araku is figuring it out, and he's been like top 10 in pressures for the last month or so. New linebackers, your safeties are getting healthy. Corner's still a major issue, but they've kind of shown over the last couple of weeks, at least the busted coverages are slowing down, and now you add starting safeties back into the mix there. I could see 6-2. Now, the games are Raiders win, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions. You got to win one of those, and then you got to run the table Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, Giants, and all that you could definitely see happening. So it's not that out of the realm of possibility, but this is going to have to be one of the best run defenses in the NFL from this point forward, and the offense can't misfire the way that it has in 4 of the 9 games so far this season.
Yeah, the plan, it can't be. So going back to summer, you remember one of the things I said about the multiplicity of it and all the different things they could do and will be able to do. And for all intents and purposes, when they're humming, before anything gets away from them and the game flow, game script thing that I loathe more than anything in professional football because of how close all these games always end up being, is like George Pickens, 15 targets, CeeDee Lamb, 15 targets. Like maybe the other guys don't even get a target. Like you have to decide, this is what we're going to do. We are going to design it this way, and it becomes touchdown, first down, get down. And then, the other way, the same thing. Like, this can't be a week-to-week thing where you're like, oh, no, you just went and got Q the same way you went and got Kenny, the same way you went and got Clowney. Easy's on the come up. Like, you're going to stop the run. I don't want to hear any bullshit about anything else. If Mahomes goes out and throws for 400 and you lose, that's the hill you've decided to die on. Figure it out.
Yeah, it should not only be stopping the run, but it's got to be collapsing the pocket from the middle, and if you add that, then I think Ezeraku is getting home a lot more. Like, he's way up there in pressures, but the sacks, the eyeball test isn't quite there, even though his splash play number is fairly high. I think he could just fly through the roof and put him in like defensive rookie of the year type of territory if you do get that kind of play from the middle. And it's got to be quick pressures that bail out the back end. And these linebackers, obviously Overshown is coming off of now a second significant knee surgery in back-to-back years. We saw how that impacted Trayvon Diggs. So this is another reach. It's like, how many of these things can you line up that if this goes well, if this goes well, if this goes well, if this goes well, before it's like a 2% chance of all that happening, And I do think the majority of them would have to happen. You could have easily a hiccup against Washington division opponent. The Chargers could play great against you. The Giants in week 18 are capable of beating you. So I would put the chances of this happening in the mid-single percentiles.
Well, I think that's exactly where it is. It's like 7% based pretty much everywhere you look. But that's just to get in, right? I think my big thing as you go through this is like, I mean, the Detroit Lions, world beaters, blah, blah, they've had a ton of, injuries. They've given up 180 points, right? You start looking at every team. Like, the Chiefs are 5-4. This isn't a vintage Chiefs team. Like, I don't care what you want to say about Mahomes or don't believe in, and the magic that he's going to have, and who the next man up, and all these things. Like everyone has an expiration date, right? The Eagles are not unbeatable. They proved that in week 1. Yeah, Jalen Carter wasn't there. Neither was Quinnen Williams this time around, right? The thing that's going to be really interesting, I think my big problem with this team is we talked about, you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, damn it. And like, the Cardinals game was so deflating. It's probably more deflating than any game on the schedule, right? I mean, am I missing one? The Panthers won. I mean, the Panthers have showed some pluck. They just took down the Packers, and they made Jordan Love look like cosplay Mahomes. So when you look at the final 8 games, like you said, Raiders has to be a win. Eagles, go prove a point. Like, go show everybody that you're here. You get those 2 straight away. Now people are going to start talking about maybe Vegas makes them a favorite against the Chiefs, depending on what they do. We're talking about Thanksgiving, right? And we're talking about now the Lions game again, depending, like, think about this. Like, the Lions problem is week to week, the whole everybody eats thing has become a problem, because you're seeing guys, not just for fantasy teams, but you're seeing frustration from David Montgomery. You're seeing frustration from J-Mo. Even Laporta, like, from week to week, the variance of their team is like Amon-Ra is the only one, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Everyone else is like, is he open? And did Goff miss him? Because if they're on, Goff can go 21 for 21. I mean, he's that efficient. That offense is that special. They have playmakers everywhere. But they also have weeks where he looks like he's in St. Louis trying to figure out Sean McVay's offense. because you're trying to get everyone involved. The other team makes a play, you get pressure. There's ways inside of each and every one of these games. We already talked about Herbert and the Pittsburgh Steelers should probably give you a blueprint this weekend, right, on how to knock them down or at least keep that game competitive. The Vikings, JJ McCarthy, the Commanders, you're probably going to have Mariota. I know Jaden Daniels didn't dislocate the elbow, but if they're out of it, and are they really going to play him? Now, here's where this gets really interesting. We talked about this being a week-to-week team. We talked about maybe this thing coming down to week 18 and the Giants. We thought after Russ threw for 450 that might be one of those crazy, and it's Jackson Dart with his quaff and all of the ambiance around that dude floating on air. They might not win another game, but they might lose every single one of them on the final possession, including week 18 for you to get into the playoffs. So, to your point, the same way that you can talk yourself into winning each one of these games, they've certainly given you enough proof to lose them all too.
Yeah, the dynamics have to shift, and maybe that does shift with a move to a 5-man defensive line. They did a ton more of that. We'll have to talk about that more a little bit later on in the week. But cold beer's coming up to celebrate a successful trade deadline for the Cowboys. Let us know in the comments if you need a cold one. We'll crack one. Back real soon to talk more bye-week news as this worm keeps on turning in Cowboys land. For New Bear, I'm Dawson. Until next time, how about wow?